Welcome everyone. I'm just going to get started and a special shout out to our NAVA members. And thank you all for joining us for the final webinar in our 3-part symposium of NAVA Talks AI. Last week we had Catherine Giles from Arts Law sharing information on how copyright works with the arts and AI. And our first session with Siobhan Wright from Terry Janke and Company shared information about how AI is currently interacting with traditional knowledge and ICIP. Both speakers shared information on good practice protocols. If you missed the previous 2 webinars, you can visit the NAVA events page on our website to view the recordings, and all 3 sessions will be up in the coming week. To start, NAVA acknowledges and pays respect to the rightful custodians of the many First Nation lands upon which this online event will be streamed and received. We recognise all custodians of country throughout all lands, waters and territories, and pay respect to First Nation communities, ancestors and elders. Sovereignty was never ceded. My name is Robin Fernandez and I am NAVA's Queensland Coordinator. I am here on Gubbi Gubbi Jinnaburra country and I will be the NAVA MC today. Emma Fan, NAVA's New South Wales Coordinator, and Georgie Cirillo, NAVA's Deputy Director, will also be online today. Just some quick housekeeping. This session will be Auslan interpreted by our wonderful interpreters Angela and Jerry. And if you're needing their support, please pin them to your screen by clicking the 3 dots on their video. Once you've pinned them, they will remain visible on your screen throughout the session. We are also live captioning today with our captioner, Amy. Please note that today's session will be recorded and available on our website in the coming week, and you should receive an email once the recording is available. We encourage participation in the discussion by submitting a question in the Q&A feature. We will be asking a few questions at the end of the session, and thank you for those who submitted questions when registering. We will also have a survey link available and would love to hear your experiences in this space and any feedback you have. We will be compiling all the questions we're unable to answer to follow up at a later date. Now, talking about AI feels urgent, especially as the technology continues to unfurl before our very eyes, and its use inevitably becomes more prolific in the arts sector and beyond. Here at NAVA, we've been conducting work to stay informed in this space and to ensure artists and creators' rights remain at the forefront of the conversation. I would now like to welcome Emma Pham, NAVA's New South Wales Coordinator, to share a little bit more about NAVA's work and AI. Thanks, Emma.
Thanks, Robin. And thanks to everyone for joining us today for the final NAVA Talks AI session, where we'll hear from Kailum Graves, who will be introduced to you momentarily. I am joining you today from Darug and Darul country, where I live and work, on country where sovereignty was never ceded. For those who couldn't make the previous sessions and are just joining us today, I will be offering some brief context around NAVA's advocacy work in relation to AI, in particular generative AI, as the space is quickly moving and will of course feed into our discussion today. So firstly, about NAVA, we are an independent membership organisation bringing together the many voices of the visual arts, craft and design sectors. Our work revolves around improving the fundamental conditions of work and practice, and we do this primarily through advocacy, education, and promotion of the code of practice. So currently, our engagement with the work around AI is focused on the promotion of responsible AI adoption, as well as bringing awareness towards some of the existing and potential harmful outcomes of its use, some of which we explored in our previous sessions, including copyright infringement by generative AI platforms, the continual unlawful reproduction of Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander art, and the derogatory treatment of artwork, to name a few examples. It's not all bad news, though. We know that some artists are already using AI in innovative ways, and that this tech will continue to create opportunities for artists, arts workers, and organizations alike. But first and foremost, we do need to be concerned about protecting the rights of creators and makers. We are still learning about AI as it continues to evolve and become inextricably linked with our worlds, which is why sessions like these, conversations with our peers, and sharing information is all so important and will continue to be. If you are engaging with AI in any way, we would love to hear from you. There will be a survey that's circulated at the end of today's session, and you can also contact us directly via email on nava@visualarts.net.au. Also, if we are unable to get to your question today, you are very welcome to ask us via email as well. This, like any other big change, will require all sorts of dialogue. Thanks so much. I'm going to hand it back over to Robin now to introduce our presenter.
Thanks, Emma. Today's session, we will hear an artist's perspective on AI. Our guest is Kailum Graves, and Kailum is a multidisciplinary and conceptual media artist based in Meanjin, Brisbane. He's currently undertaking a residency in Germany and the Netherlands, but joining us today from South Africa. Kailum's research delicately exists in a space beyond photography, internet art, algorithmic art, and digital performance. He's particularly interested in the way humans use technology to transform, manipulate, and transcend natural environmental limits. We asked Kailum to think about AI in his artistic practice and address 4 questions. How is AI used in your practice? Have your rights ever been infringed upon? From an artist's perspective, where does AI stand in relation to visual arts practice, and what protections do you think should be in place? Over the next hour, you will hear Kailum's approach to incorporating AI in creative expression, exploring its potential to inform artistic expression, while addressing questions of authorship, authenticity, and ethical implications. From generative AI to collaborative endeavours, the conversation will highlight opportunities for innovation while considering the ethical, societal, and existential implications, particularly focusing on the homogenising impact on creativity. Kailum advocates for a balanced approach that embraces AI's transformative potential while critically examining its societal and ethical dimensions. Thank you, Kailum. I know it's early where you are. Thanks for joining us today. I'm going to hand it over to you and you can share your screen and get started. Just make sure you unmute yourself.
I'm muted. Hello, I'm Kailum Graves, but yeah, I'll get to that a little bit later. I'm going to start this presentation by asking for rhetorical questions / thought experiments. The first is, imagine walking into a gallery where every piece of art was created by AI. How does that make you feel about the future of art? And then, can AI truly replicate the emotional depth of art created by humans? Or more generally, can AI truly replicate the emotional depth of humans? Imagine an AI that could scan millions of artworks and then create a piece that it predicts would be the most popular. How might this technology change the way artists create, galleries create, or how we value art? think of your favorite painting or sculpture. Now consider if you found out it was created by AI. Would your perception of the artwork change? Why or why not? The questions I have been asked to address today are, how is AI used in your art practice? Have your rights ever been infringed upon? From an artist's perspective, where does AI stand in relation to visual arts practice? E.g., is it just a tool? And what protections do you think should be in place? And there's obviously a big debate going around with AI. I think for me, AI is a complex topic that could easily plummet into the abyss of like apocalyptic pessimism, or worse, into the void of utopian optimism or futurism. And I kind of get into both of these a little bit later in the presentation. But I want to transcend these two ideas which seem to dominate discussions of AI, and instead explore on a semi-philosophical level the abstraction of infinite possibilities. I will try to pursue a nonetheless flawed neutral middle ground, the tyranny of the golden mean. This is the view I generally take with technology, especially new technology such as AI, especially because the concept of good and evil is deeply rooted in various philosophical, religious, and cultural traditions, including the Judeo-Christian worldview. However, I'm philosophically obsessed with the absurd, the fundamental disharmony between human search for meaning and the meaninglessness of the universe. So I enjoy examining lose-lose paradoxes. So I will attempt to explore AI a little outside of the Star Wars worldview of good and bad. But I'll do a quick introduction. First, a little bit about myself and my background. I have a background in philosophy and art history, but I now work as a multidisciplinary and conceptual media artist. I'm critically obsessed with artificial digital objects, so born digital objects that never really existed in the physical world, but I'm interested in the relationship between the two. And then through artworks, writing, and curatorial projects, I investigate the hidden and invisible structures of power. I'm obsessed with the web and born digital content. I'm particularly interested in image-rich technologies and the way global media communication can be sampled, organized, and considered in new philosophical, sociological, and political terms. And I think AI perfectly sits here. But nonetheless, while these issues are political and economic in nature, I don't believe anti-capitalist art offers any real alternative to the economic and ideological discourses of multinational capitalism. In its place, I'm interested in examining the politics of the image and the construction of truth. To do this, I use the internet, which has normalized the act of collecting and compiling information to preserve and curate found images and raw material. The aim is to engage with the cultural space and aesthetics of the internet, the vast amounts of digital information it contains, as a subject, a material, and a tool of artistic production. So basically for my practice, I use my laptop the same way a photographer uses a camera to document, record, and manipulate the world, which for me is born digital artifacts, to explore the disappearance of clear boundaries between culture, environment, and technology. I'm particularly interested in the way humans use technology to transform, manipulate, and transcend natural environmental limits. I don't believe there's a one-way correlation. Instead, a culture develops a technology such as agriculture to change the environment, and then this technology in turn changes the culture and society that created it, and it just becomes this kind of infinite closed loop. And for me, I think AI, like all technologies, sits somewhere here. So this is an example of one of my works. So this is 130 of the world's billionaires, kind of captured in like the number one dad mug pose. So these are all kind of found images. Took me about a year to kind of source and find them all. So they don't relate together, but then I kind of bring them all together and create a narrative that didn't really exist, which is, I think, what photography does. And I also think what AI does. Yeah, so for me, I think AI challenges the traditional boundaries and blurs the lines between what is tangible and what is virtual. For instance, in the realm of visual arts, AI can create digital artworks that evoke physical textures and depth, or it can simulate environments in virtual reality that feels kind of incredibly lifelike. And I think this interplay raises fascinating questions about what constitutes reality in art. AI has the potential to push the boundaries, to push the limits of how we define and interact with the physical and digital worlds. But for me, I kind of think it's easy to say things like this, where it's like we're entering a world where it's kind of, we can't tell if something's true or reality or not anymore with AI. But I'm kind of generally more interested in the politics of the image and the construction of truth. And I don't think this is necessarily true. For example, in one of my projects, which is this one where I collect pictures for sale on Gumtree of people selling mirrors to capture these kind of accidental intimate self-portraits that weren't really intended because they're taking a picture to sell a mirror, and not really to take a picture, to take a portrait, so they're not really posing. I wrote in the description that photography isn't a tool to document and record reality, it's a means to manipulate it. So I don't think AI is doing anything different than what the invention of photography already did and what it's still doing today. For instance, if you're a left-leaning newspaper, you tend to document a protest from behind the protesters to make the police look angry and mean. Whereas if you're a right-wing newspaper, you document the same protests from behind the police to make the protesters look violent. So I think it's kind of, photography is all manipulated reality anyway. However, the rise of AI does overlap with the post-truth age in several ways. So the post-truth age refers to a cultural and political context where appeals to emotion and personal beliefs are more important than objective facts, especially when it comes to shaping public opinion. In this era, the spread of misinformation and disinformation is facilitated by digital media, leading to a situation where truth becomes obscured and is often less relevant than personal or group bias. I think Trump and Elon Musk are, for me, good examples of this, the post-truth age. But what does this mean for AI, especially that it has coincided with the post-truth age? Just going to have a quick sip of water, which is probably good for a small break. So there's information manipulation in the post-truth age. Misinformation and disinformation are rampant, amplified by the explosion of AI-driven algorithms on social media platforms and the internet. So these algorithms often prioritize engagement over accuracy, leading to the spread of false or misleading information. There's deep fakes. AI technology, particularly deep learning algorithms, has enabled the creation of highly realistic fake images, videos, and audio recordings. Deepfakes can be used to manipulate public opinion, spread misinformation, or discredit individuals and institutions. And there's actually recent real-world examples of this from late last year, where deepfakes were used in the Turkish election. One prominent incident involved a sex tape of an opposition presidential candidate, which he claimed was a deepfake, but nonetheless he had to withdraw from the race. And there were also allegations of audios being used to sway voters' votes, with some claims suggesting involvement from foreign entities like Russia in spreading deepfake contents to influence the election outcome. And there's filter bubbles. So AI-powered recommendation systems on social media and news websites create filter bubbles where users are exposed only to content that aligns with their existing beliefs, biases, or preferences. And this can reinforce echo chambers and limit exposure to diverse perspectives and information. And there's automated content generation. AI can generate vast amounts of content quickly and cheaply, including news articles, which we've kind of recently seen in Australia, blog posts and social media posts. This raises concerns about the authenticity and credibility of information being generated, and biased algorithms. So AI algorithms can reflect and maintain existing biases present in the data used to train them. So for me, like photography, AI doesn't document, but it in fact manipulates the world. AI technology, especially in the fields like computer vision and natural language processing, are used to document and understand the world around us. They can analyze vast amounts of data, including images, text, and other forms of media to extract insights. But that's all they are, kind of manipulated or interpreted information in various ways. So I'm currently living in Germany, and I recently went to an exhibition in Dusseldorf. It was called Beyond Fame, Die Kunst der Stars, Art of the Stars. It was horrible, but that's a completely different story. But Grimes, the former partner of Elon Musk, was one of the kind of artists there, and she must be drinking the Musk Kool-Aid, as she wrote in her description of her art, that she believes we are the last generation of humans to be creative, as in the future, AI will be better, smarter, and more creative than us, and we won't need artists anymore, or authors, or film producers, or musicians, or any creators, basically. However, I have some counterpoints to this claim, which kind of seems pretty popular, that AI is going to replace all creative industries. There's the unique human perspective. So AI may be able to mimic human creativity to some extent, but it lacks the unique human perspective, emotions, and experiences that drive much of artistic expression. Moreover, human creativity is often deeply interwoven with culture, history, and personal identity. And AI is a tool and not a replacement. So rather than replacing human creativity, AI is more likely to augment it and enhance it, just as artists use brushes and paints, writers use word processors or typewriters, musicians use instruments. AI can serve as a tool for creative exploration and innovation. So I think artists and creators may leverage AI to streamline processes, generate ideas, or experiment with new techniques rather than being replaced by AI. And there's also diversity of creativity. So creativity is diverse and multi-dimensional, encompassing a wide range of forms and expressions. Moreover, the richness of human creativity lies in its unpredictability and its adaptability, which AI may struggle to emulate. And so for me, I always think art is reactive, which AI can't really do. There's also human connection and interpretation. AI and creativity, art and creativity often serves as a means of human connection and communication. The human experience of engaging with art, literature, music, and other creative works involves interpretation, empathy, and an emotional tone that AI cannot fully replicate. Even if AI generates creative works, they tend to lack the depth of meaning and connection that humans seek in artistic expression. And there's also ethical and societal considerations. So the widespread adoption of AI in creative fields raises ethical and societal considerations, including questions of ownership, bias, and the role of human creators in shaping AI-driven creativity. There are concerns about the potential for AI to maintain existing it's so early in the morning for me, sorry. Or to produce works that lack authenticity and cultural significance. So some real world examples of this include, as we all know, there's a lot of bias in AI systems, or in the algorithms behind the AI and the data set actually used to create AI. So facial recognition technology famously has been found to have higher error rates for people of color compared to white individuals. This is because the data sets used to train these systems have disproportionately higher representations of white faces or colored faces when it comes to crime, especially in countries like America. Such biases can preserve and even worsen racial discrimination in areas like law enforcement or hiring, because AI is being used now by HR firms. There's cultural appropriation and misrepresentation. AI that generates cultural content like music, art, or literature might do so, or actually does so, without a deep understanding of the cultural context and significance of the elements it uses. For instance, AI-generated art might mishandle cultural symbols that are sacred or historically significant, using them in ways that are considered disrespectful by the cultures to which they belong. And authenticity in creative works. While technologically proficient, I think AI works lacks a soul or authenticity that comes from genuine human experiences and emotional investment. For me, they lack essence, but this is just my opinion. And there's also access and control over AI. So the development of AI and the development and deployment of AI technologies is controlled by a limited number of powerful corporations and governments, which can lead to a concentration of power and influence. So while I compared AI to photography, I do acknowledge that AI is different from other technologies in a few fundamental ways. So autonomy and learning. So unlike traditional technologies that are programmed to perform specific tasks, AI systems have the ability to learn from data and improve their performance over time without any more explicit programming. Complex decision-making. So AI systems can analyze vast amounts of data, recognize patterns, and make decisions or predictions based on this analysis. This capability allows AI to handle complex tasks that may be difficult or impossible for traditional technologies to achieve. It's also adaptability. So AI systems can adapt to changing circumstances and environments. They can adjust their behavior or decision-making processes in response to new information or feedback, making them more flexible and versatile than most other technologies. And human-like abilities. Some AI technologies are designed to mimic certain aspects of human intelligence, such as understanding natural language, recognizing images, or solving problems. But there are ethical and societal problems with this. So the development and deployment of AI raises unique ethical and societal considerations. Questions about accountability, bias, privacy, the impact on employment and society are central to discussions about AI, which does distinguish it from other technologies. But I do want to look at the invention of photography kind of to try to use as a base case for AI. Because it is kind of like a historical precedent. So the invention of photography in the 19th century revolutionized the art world. So prior to its development, painting was the dominant medium for capturing visual representations of the world. However, with the advent of photography, artists and critics alike questioned the relevance of painting in an era where highly detailed and accurate representations could be achieved through mechanical processes. However, some artists, like the Impressionists, responded to this by exploring new modes of expression and that emphasize subjective interpretations of reality rather than strict realism. So there are opportunities here to react against or with AI and create something fundamentally new, which we're already kind of starting to see within the art world, but also within literature and music. I highlighted this point that there are opportunities to react against or with AI, because I think that is what art is for me. Again, just my opinion. So in one of my projects, which is this one, I Don't Understand Modern Art, which originated in 2015 as a Twitter feed that kind of, it's a bot I wrote to retweet tweets featuring the phrase, "I don't understand modern art." I wrote that the tweets intrigue me because on the one hand, they are honest and real, but on the other hand, They indicate outdated thinking about art. The criteria and boundaries of art have been challenged by a great lineage of artists over the last 200 years. However, it is this provoking that makes contemporary art seem so alienating. The work is hopefully a humorous attempt to showcase that art encompasses a broad spectrum of traditional and experimental media, and it doesn't matter if it is understood or not, its purpose is to elicit a response. Art itself is a response to the world, an attempt to capture an aspect of life as experienced by us, and is a catalyst for an ongoing open discussion and inquiry about the world. I hope to show that it's okay to hate an artwork, but it shouldn't be dismissed because it doesn't adhere to preconceived notions of what art is or ought to be. I think it's interesting to ask what is art. However, I think it's more amusing to ask, is it interesting? So to finally answer the first question, how is AI used in your art practice? Okay, this is a video, but it doesn't seem to be playing, so I'll just keep going on. A lot of so this is a work I created called Cosmos, or a chronicle of life's incredible order, complexity and remarkable struggle against empathy and resistance of decay. So it was made, I'll kind of get into it a little bit. It was made kind of frame by frame. It's a 5-hour-long video documenting the entire history of the cosmos, where I sourced each individual. There's a few 100,000 on its own to kind of create a holistic video. So a lot of my work is the product of obsessive online surfing and the desire to order and rearrange the seemingly endless amounts of information available online. For example, in 2022 and 2023, it took me 2 years. I stupidly decided to painstakingly create frame by frame a 5-hour abstract moving landscape to depict life, the universe, and everything. I wrote in the description that the aim was to be as scientifically accurate as possible, yet visually compelling in the interest of underscoring the interconnectedness and interdependency of all living things. Humans have always been captivated by the cosmos and humanity's place within it, so have sought to understand and explain it through various historical, cultural, religious, philosophical, and scientific perspectives. This is what fascinates me, as these perspectives can be boiled down to 2 metaphysical questions. What is there, and what is it like? And for me, this is the beautiful connecting space between science, philosophy, and art. Life began the moment molecules of information started to reproduce and evolve. DNA learns in a sense because it accumulates information through random areas, but it is slow. So DNA created a faster way of learning, complex creatures with brains. These organisms learn in real time and accumulate information. Yet when they die, the information dies with them. What makes humans so exquisite is language, a system of communication allowing us to assemble information in collective memory. It outlasts individuals and grows and evolves from generation to generation. This is the reason we as a species are so creative. Everything from creating scientific marvels like Hubble Ultra Deep Field to artistic expression or philosophical contemplation and introspection. Today, this language is mediated by the pixel. So for me, the manual creation process of this work, which I could have done I'm imagining pretty easy with AI, allowed for a personal touch and interpretation that reflects a unique vision and perspective. I think for me, art reflects the society that creates it. I learned that when I was studying art history, that it's not so much about the artist or the artwork. It's a fundamental reflection of the people and the time who created it. So to answer the first question, how is AI used in my art practice? I use a lot of AI and I play around with a lot of coding. So a lot of my work is decoded photography, or creating my own bots like for Twitter. And I do play a lot around with AI, but I deliberately haven't used it yet in any of my published artworks to create any of my works. I create very manually intensive kind of anti-AI works that value the human aspect of creation. But I also still use AI to streamline my workflow, to play around with code or to do other stuff. And I'm actually working with someone in the Netherlands at the moment on AI, and also writing a book on AI at the moment with them. But I do use it a lot for admin and things like creating images for most of this presentation, which I will kind of get to a little bit later. So my view is that AI, while it can generate visuals or even entire videos based on input data, it lacks the depth or understanding and creative intuition that human artists bring to the process. So kind of when I first started making this project, because I was funded to do it, and I was getting a bit stressed about time constraints, I did think about using AI to kind of finish it off, but it would have been lacked soul or essence or kind of the depth that I was actually looking for in the work. And the whole work is about humans and their kind of the evolution of life and their place within the cosmos. But back to the evolution of photography. So I think similarly, the introduction of color photography further disrupted artistic conventions. While black and white photography had already posed challenges to painting, color photography offered a new level of faithfulness and richness of details. Once again, artists had to adapt to this technological advancement and reconsider their approach to image making, which is a kind of the place I think we are with AI at the moment. But for me, AI is a tool for art, not the be all and end all for kind of creating a project or creating art. In much the same way that the emergence of AI presents both opportunities and challenges for the art world. AI technologies can generate images, music, literature, or other forms of creative expressions autonomously or in collaboration with human creators. But I think this raises questions about the role of the artist, the nature of creativity, and the boundaries between human and machine-generated art. But I think we're at the point where we're kind of redefining creativity. So some view AI as a tool that expands the possibilities for artistic expression, enabling artists to explore new techniques, styles, and concepts that were previously unattainable, while others express concerns about the potential homogenization of artistic expression, as AI algorithms may prioritize certain aesthetic conventions or trends. And I write may, but I think it actually does, because I deliberately used AI to create all the slides in this presentation. And I used a few different AIs, a few different codes, a few different versions. I played around a lot, but they all kind of look blandly, boringly the same. Every single image, you can tell it's created by AI, and it's just this kind of homogenized culture, this homogenized blah output of AI. But adaptation and innovation, I still think there's going to be kind of, and there are already a lot of opportunities with AI. So as with previous technological advancements, artists are likely and already are adapting to the presence of AI in their creative process. Just as painters responded to the challenges posed by photography by exploring new forms of expression, contemporary artists are already experimenting with AI as a medium for artistic expression, which is kind of what I did with Cosmos, my anti-AI project, manually doing something over 2 years instead of doing it within minutes using AI. And every time I have this project exhibited, I'm always asked by the creator, did I use AI to create it? So I think people are kind of already thinking that way or assuming that way, or kind of dismissing the manual labor that goes into art practice. So this is another project of mine, every building transition on the Google Street View Sunset Strip, which is a wall-sized 2-channel video projector, which revisited and imagined Edward Rush's 25-footer long accordion folded book, Every Building on the Sunset Strip. I did it 50 years after he drove down on the back of a truck and manually took photos of every single building, both sides, along the Sunset Strip, in the interest of gaining a better understanding of contemporary photography in the current junction of conceptual uncertainty and technological transition. I wrote in the description, on a more personal note, I am fascinated by the play between originality and imitation, the copy of the copy of the copy of the copy that repeats forever throughout the history of art. I believe there is no art or art history without borrowing, appropriation, fraud, plagiarism, and theft. Art, especially digitally derived art and music, is a mashup of aesthetic approaches that question authorship while relying on the authority of the original for validation. That's his original book. So this brings me to collaborations, whether they're kind of active collaborations or kind of artists kind of engaging with history or with other artists. So there is a long history of collaboration in writing. Examples include the Bible, the Finnish epic Kalevala, and works by Homer. The perception of solitary authorship only became dominant after the invention of the printing press. But collaborative authorship has seen a revival, and especially with technology and digital technology. Examples include the book Naked Came the Stranger, which was written by 24 authors, and the online collaborative writing space Hypertext Hotel. And then in late January, Japanese artist Kuden announced at a prize ceremony that she used generative AI. She actually said ChatGPT for 5% of her book, Symphony Tower Tokyo, including like whole sentences, whole dialogues used, but again, only 5%. So AI can be a tool and isn't really entirely a threat to creative production. But my personal view is that it should never be used 100%. For example, last year, a Beijing-based professor set out to write a science fiction novel about the metaverse and humanoid robots. AI ended up generating his entire book, which then took out a National Science Fiction Award. And this brings me to kind of a prize, an art prize in Australia, which was originally going to accept AI blanketly, although as an artist who has been a finalist twice in the prize, I had to both times sign a contract saying that I was the creator of the work, that I sat down with the person and took a picture or painted a picture. The terms have since been updated to artists won't be able to use platforms like Midjourney, which do not grant full copyright to artists. The prize has always valued the integrity of artist copyright, and this has us in line with industry standards, and any further changes will be considered during our annual reviews of terms at the end of the year. I think this is a lot better, but still kind of a slightly problematic view, which I'll get to a little bit later in my presentation. So the next question I've been asked to address is, have your rights ever been infringed upon? A few times, especially on Instagram, using text I've written and also copying entire projects of mine. And I was once threatened with litigation by David Walsh of Mona fame, but that's a different story. But I don't really believe in copyright, and a lot of my art actively questions current copyright laws. This is because technology is always co-opted, and the internet is a good example of this. Or as Chomsky claimed in his books, Hopes and Prospects, in order to socialize costs and risk while privatizing profit, governments fund the military technology in the guise of defense to promote technological and industrial development. Or in other words, the military industry is a cover for the creation of a high-tech economy and the next generation of consumer goods. So like televisions, computers, the internet, or biochemical technology. But I think a less terrifying example of technological co-option is actually copyright, because the concept of copyright arose at precisely the point that technology, the printing press, and budding capitalism made the large-scale reproduction and distribution of intellectual products possible. Copyright emerged with the modernist idea that the author was an expressive and possessive individual, but has, with the rise of corporate power, migrated out of the hands of creative individuals to become the property of large corporations. And this is pretty much my problem with copyright, that it's used to kind of protect companies, but not really individuals. So I think kind of this tweet kind of nicely sums it up, which is like an AI company posting CCTV footage of someone who stole from them, although they're kind of blatantly stealing work, literature or music to train their AI algorithms. So I think the end result is a capitalization of copyright that creates differential access to cultural material. So rich artists with labels like Beyonce can afford to sample legally, while most artists cannot. For example, Negative Land, who are the conceptual founders of culture jamming, were successfully sued by U2's labels Island Records for their audio piece U2. And then this is a recent example I found only, I think, 2 weeks ago, where kind of richer artists or with labels are the ones able to kind of steal other people's material and use other people's material, while an independent artist or a poor artist can't, and they kind of generally will be sued for doing it. So yeah, I think, which I get to a little bit later in my presentation, I think copyright's kind of used to protect companies or kind of the wealthy over kind of individuals. But this brings me to the different types of AI. Because I think it's impossible to talk about AI, especially AI and art, without going into the depths of AI and what it is. So artificial intelligence can be categorized into several types of, based on their capabilities, functions, and applications. So some common types of AI include narrow or weak AI. So narrow or weak AI is a type of AI designed and trained for a specific task or a narrow set of tasks. It operates within a limited context and does not possess general intelligence. Examples include virtual assistants like Siri, Alexa, or Google Assist, as well as recommendation systems like Spotify and image recognition software. There's also general AI, also known as strong AI, which is AI systems that have the ability to understand, learn, and apply knowledge across a wide range of tasks similar to human intelligence, but it still kind of remains largely theoretical and has not yet been achieved. It would possess cognitive abilities similar to humans and be capable of reasoning, problem solving, and adapting to various environments. And there's artificial superintelligence, which is an even more advanced form of AI that in theory would surpass human intelligence across all domains and activities. I think it's kind of the AI everyone's terrified of. If it was to be achieved, it would possess intellectual capabilities far superior to the smartest humans in every field, including scientific, creative, and social endeavors. Achieving artificial superintelligence raises significant ethical and existential concerns, as its actions and decisions could have profound implications on humanity. And then there's reactive machines, which are programmed to react to specific situations or inputs with predetermined responses. They do not have a memory or ability to learn from past experiences. So chess playing programs, especially IBM's Deep Blue, are examples of reactive machines. They can just kind of react after every move of chess, but they're not kind of holistically planning a game in their mind. And then there's generative AI, which refers to a type of artificial intelligence that is capable of generating new data or content that is similar to, but not identical to, the data it has been trained on. Instead of simply recognizing patterns or making decisions based on existing data, it has the ability to create entirely new data instances. It often involves the use of neural networks. These models are trained on large data sets and learn to generate new data points by understanding the underlying patterns and distributions in the training data. One prominent example is generative adversarial networks, which consist of two neural networks, a generator and a discriminator, trained in tandem. And the generator creates new data instances, such as images, while the discriminator evaluates the generated data against real data. And so through kind of continuous training, the generator improves its ability to produce increasingly realistic content. So here are some kind of common examples of this, because this is kind of the one that I think that's going to affect art the most. There's image generation. So it can be used to create realistic images of objects, landscapes, or even people that do not exist in reality. This has applications in fields like computer graphics, art, and design. Text generation. Text generation models can be trained to produce human-like text, including articles, stories, poetry, and dialogue. These models can be used for tasks such as language translation, content creation, and dialogue generation in chatbots. There's music generation, which can be used to create music compositions in various styles and genes. Music generation models learn the patterns and structure of music from existing compositions and generate new pieces with similar characteristics. Video generation, so similar to image generation, generative AI can be used to create realistic videos by generating individual frames and stitching them together. However, it also raises ethical and legal questions regarding authorship, ownership, and the authenticity of the generated content. So I'd like to address a few of these, especially authorship and ownership. So traditionally, authorship of created works has been attributed to human creators who invest their time, effort, and creativity in producing original content. However, with generative AI, the lines of authorship have become blurred. And this has led to debates about whether AI-generated works should be attributed to the AI system itself, its developers, or the users who deploy it. In many areas around the world, copyright law grants ownership rights to human creators, but it's unclear how these laws apply to content generated by AI. Authenticity. So while AI systems can produce highly realistic and convincing content, there's a risk that AI-generated works may lack the genuine creativity, emotion, or intent associated with human-created art. This raises questions about the value and authenticity of AI-generated content, particularly in contexts where originality and creativity are highly valued, which I think is the art industry, or I hope it's the art industry. There's plagiarism and attribution. So the proliferation of AI-generated content also raises concerns about plagiarisms and proper attribution. If AI systems are trained on existing copyrighted material, which they are, there's a risk that generated content may infringe upon the rights of the original authors. And there's ethical considerations. So beyond legal issues, there are broader ethical considerations surrounding the use of AI in creative endeavours. These include questions about the impact of AI on human creativity, the potential for AI-generated content to undermine the livelihoods of human creators, and the social implications of widespread adoption of AI-generated content. However, I think there still are a lot of opportunities. So new tools and techniques. AI technologies provide artists with new tools and techniques to explore and express their creativity. Generative AI, for example, can assist artists in generating novel ideas, creating intricate designs, or producing complex compositions. Efficiency and productivity. AI tools can help artists streamline their workflows, automate repetitive tasks, and enhance productivity. Accessibility and inclusion. So AI-powered tools can make art creation more accessible to a wider range of people, including those with limited technical skills or disabilities. For example, AI-driven software with intuitive interfaces can enable people to create digital art without extensive training or expertise. And I think that's kind of important because I write this in a lot of my funding proposals. I write the strong demand for my artwork is driven by audience appeal and interest for engagement with cutting-edge new media art. This is particularly relevant for innovative and forward-looking digital art, which by its very nature is borderless, accessible, user-friendly, and available to anyone with an internet connection. And I think AI exists here. And there's also collaboration and experimentation. So artists can experiment with AI algorithms and incorporate them into their creative processes to explore new forms of expression. This can lead to interdisciplinary projects that push the boundaries of both art and technology. But the biggest risk in my mind is the homogenization of creativity. There's a risk that the widespread use of AI tools in art creation can lead to the homogenization or standardization of artistic styles and expressions. If artists rely too heavily on AI-generated content or templates, it may limit the diversity and originality of artistic output. And that's kind of the reason I haven't used AI in my practice yet. So I create a lot with it at the moment. I'm playing around with it a lot, especially with the coding side of it. But it kind of all just looks blandly the same, and it always looks AI generated, which is my problem with it. And like I said before, all the images in this presentation were created by AI. And in my opinion, they kind of all look blandly the same. And this kind of brings me to the last question. What protections do you think should be in place? So I think intellectual property rights, ensuring that visual artists retain ownership and control over their creations is essential. Clear copyright laws and enforcement mechanisms should be in place to prevent unauthorized use, especially by AI companies, or replications of artistic work by AI systems or their entities. And I know before I said I don't believe in copyright, so it seems a bit weird that I'm saying that. But I think that kind of at the moment where copyright laws stand, artists believing in copyright to protect them is a bit like poor Americans in the Midwest thinking that Trump will have their best interests at heart. So copyright laws at the moment are kind of really protecting companies and not individuals. I think copyright should protect individuals who AI companies steal their work from to train their systems. And then the next point is ethical guidelines for AI use. Developing ethical guidelines and standards for the use of AI in creative industries can help migrate potential problems. These guidelines should address issues such as transparency, accountability, fairness, and respect for cultural and artistic integrity. I think transparency is big, especially when you look at like art prizes and what's happening with AI-generated content now being allowed into to art awards. I think AI-generated artwork should be clearly labeled as such to ensure transparency and avoid misleading the audience about the involvement of AI in the creative process. Artists and creators should disclose the extent to which AI tools were used and provide information about the original input data and the algorithms employed. I think if people are going to be using it, they kind of should be creating it. I always think create culture, don't consume culture. And fairness. This includes addressing biases in training data, algorithms and decision-making processes to ensure that AI-generated artwork does not preserve or worsen existing inequity, like discriminatory practices, and respect for cultural and artistic integrity. AI-generated artwork should respect the cultural and artistic integrity of human creators and their communities. This includes avoiding the appropriation or misrepresentation of cultural symbols, traditions, or artistic styles. And there should be informed consent. So artists and creators should obtain informed consent from individuals whose data or creative works are used in the development or training of AI algorithms. This includes ensuring that individuals understand how their data will be used, the potential risk and benefit involves, and then also their rights to control and protect their personal information. And I think there should be continued evaluation and improvement, especially because technology develops so fast. So ethical guidelines for AI use in the creative industry should be dynamic and responsive to evolving technologies, practices, and societal values. Regular evaluation and review processes should be established to assess the impact of AI on artistic expression, cultural norms, and societal well-being, with a focus on continuous improvement and adaptation. So to address these points, I recommend the following. So education and support, providing education, training, and support for visual artists to understand and navigate the opportunities and challenges presented by AI can empower them to make informed decisions about incorporating AI into their practice. And then the biggest one for me is the promotion of human creativity. Emphasizing the unique value of human creativity and artistic expression can help safeguard the role of artists in society. While AI technologies can be powerful tools for augmentation and exploration, they should not replace or diminish the significance of human artistic vision and craftsmanship. And there should be regulation and oversight. So establishing regulatory frameworks and oversight mechanisms for AI in the creative industries can help ensure that AI technologies are developed and used responsibly, ethically, and in the best interest of artists and society as a whole. Which then brings me to my conclusion. So in summary, as we've explored today, artificial intelligence holds a transformative potential for the visual arts, not just as a tool for creation, but as a catalyst for redefining the boundaries between digital and physical realms. AI's ability to manipulate and enhance our artistic endeavours presents both opportunities and profound ethical questions, particularly around issues of authenticity, cultural integrity, and inequity. Oops, sorry, I just ended my thing. Yet this is not a journey that artists or technologists should navigate in isolation. I think the future of AI in the arts demands a collaborative approach, one where artists, technologists, ethicists, and audiences come together to ensure that these technologies enhance human creativity without diminishing the unique essence that only human experience can bring to art. So I started with a few rhetorical questions, and I would like to end with one as well. How can we, as a community, leverage AI not only to preserve, but enrich the cultural and emotional depth of the art world? How can we ensure that AI respects and amplifies human creativity rather than replaces it? So then I invite all of you to kind of engage with this question in your work, in your gallery, in your discussions, and in your explorations of AI. I think we can work together to ensure that AI in art becomes a tool for true innovation and enrichment, a complement to human creativity rather than a substitute for human creativity. So yeah, thank you very much for today, and yeah, for your willingness to envision a future where hopefully art and technology can harmoniously exist together and not kind of fight and battle each other, and yeah, where artists don't feel like they have to kind of compete with AI technology, because I think we as unique human individuals have a huge advantage over AI, and empathy, emotional depth, and the ability to kind of bring all of this into our art is our advantage over AI. So yeah, thank you. Thank you very much. And it was a weird self-promotion. After years of refusing to, I finally sold out and opened an Instagram. But I don't want to follow friends on it, only artists and other people interested in kind of art and the community. So if anyone wants to follow me, it's just Kailum Graves. But yeah, thank you so much for today.
Oh, thank you, Kailum. And well done on the early start over there. A lot of really interesting. I'm just kind of thinking like the post-truth age, and just like, it's very confronting. And it was really interesting the point you made about your artwork and the curators asking if it was AI generated, and that, you know, that sense of dismissing the labor that goes into arts practice, and how you had to actually prove that you made the work, like that's and that, yeah, what role you had in making the work. So that's really interesting to have that question asked to you as an artist and your artwork going into the gallery. It's like you've been a bit confronting. And I'm really finding your very considered approach to working with AI and that kind of deep back story, or almost like looking at the algorithms, and it's not just punching in a few words and seeing what happens. There's this kind of really comparative analysis that you're doing, which is quite intriguing because you don't really hear about that with the AI conversation at the moment. Okay. Not sure. Are you up for a few questions?
Yeah, I can definitely do it. Yeah, a few questions.
We have some that came through when people were registering, so I'll ask a couple of those, and some came through in the Q&A. Okay, so hang on, let me get my. So in your presentation, you spoke about plagiarism and attribution, ethical considerations and collaborations. So what are your thoughts on acknowledging the use of AI in a description of an artwork or writing? And do you think it's appropriate for authorship and artistry to be attributed to the AI platform rather than the user? It's like, see how you go. Answer what you can.
I think artists should definitely, if they're using it, acknowledge it. It's even like the book I mentioned where she said 5%, and I think 5%'s okay. Definitely if someone's 100% should be acknowledged, but then I kind of question their role in the creative process, unless they've written all the code, which some artists are doing with AI, creating the code themselves. And there's an artist, I forget his name, he's British, but lives in Greece. And he created a self-driving car and wrote the algorithms himself. And there's a famous picture where, like in the code, the car can never drive over a double lane because that means it's going to have a head-on. So he just parked it in a car park and put 2 lines of salt around it. So then the car became kind of infinitely trapped. And I think that's good because like he wrote the code himself and did it all himself. But I think if someone's just writing a few sentences of drawing a portrait and then entering it into an art award, that's probably where it becomes problematic for me. And then that should definitely be acknowledged. But yeah, the percent wise, I don't know. I think people then should say, yeah, to what percent AI was used, because I do think using like 5, 10, whatever is totally fine. And it's kind of just enhancing their practice. Like musicians use pedals to kind of enhance their guitar. It's kind of similar to that for me. But yeah, then it should be acknowledged. And when it's 100%, I think the AI company should be credited with, or the AI should be credited with creating the artwork. But that's just my opinion.
Yeah, because like who created it?
Yeah.
We've got a great, and this is something that I always think about, is the environmental footprint. So how do you manage the environmental footprint of your AI generated work or working in that AI space? Have you ever thought about that impact?
I think about that a lot with my art, especially too, because it's digital art, but it's always printed physically in the world. But even Cosmos, which is a 5-hour long video, which is a 40 gigabyte video, which is online. And then I do know that every time it's played, it's really in a data center somewhere in the world. It does have a carbon footprint. And even the art industry, like at the moment, I'm flying a lot for art, doing residencies and talks like in Amsterdam next month. Yeah, so I do think about it. There are ways to offset it, but I'm also skeptical about a lot of those because there's like planting trees in an environment that shouldn't really be there. Yeah, so I do think about that a lot, especially with AI, which is a huge percent of the world's energy consumption at the moment.
It is. Another great comment's come through, and I suppose it's not just about young people. She talks about what are the long-term impacts as young people coming through have access to these tools. And if AI replaces mediocre work, how will people work through mediocrity to develop expertise in the long term? Will there be people with expert level skills? And she makes a statement, surely this applies to the development of art skills. Most artists need to make a bunch of work before they really start to create decent stuff. Why would children persevere through the tough stages of learning when they can type a few words and get an image? So I think it's not just like children or young people. I think people in general are feeling that way. And I know you mentioned putting the PowerPoint together, you use those images, or if you needed inspiration to write something. So I don't know, how do you feel about that, about developing skill, unless we'll all just be mediocre society in the future, which is terrifying.
That's what I'm worried about, because even like it was in the pandemic when all assets were going insane, that NFTs were going insane, but they were mostly just AI generated content. And some of them were selling for like millions of dollars or hundreds of thousands of dollars. And like I struggle as an artist who spends like 2 years making one project to sell my work. And that it's all kind of just so easy to do. I kind of did it on purpose in the presentation, used AI though to create all the images just to kind of show how blandly homogenized they are and how boring they are. But then I think the thing is that the people who do spend the time to hone their skills will actually stand out. And the people who do engage or react to AI, like the Impressionists reacted to photography. So people can create artworks now that are kind of like, I guess, like looking like AI, but not AI, but is very manually made. And you can always tell the difference between if it's been AI generated or at the moment, and that might change in the future, or human generated. So I think it's going to be that beautiful, unique human aspect, and the people who do spend the time honing their skills, who maybe not at first, like there's a lot of people making a lot of money at the moment with AI generated content. But I think hopefully in the long run, the hard work and the human skill will pay off. But it's a bit like us, because when I was a kid, I remember having Encyclopedia Britannica, like the whole big novels, and then the internet came and kind of wiped that out. I think AI is going to kind of do the same, but not replace everything, or it'll just kind of augment and change our way of being rather than, but it is a different technology than other technologies. So yeah, I don't really know, but I hope not. I don't want a bland, boring world of.
Yeah. And it's interesting because last week, Catherine from Arts Law in that presentation posed that statement as about how do we as a society value the artistic practice produced by humans, and do we want the majority of creative practice developed by AI? And I suppose you've kind of answered it a bit, but is there, in consideration of this statement, if you've got any thoughts, when these lines blur too well between AI produced art and original artist work, what happens to artist and sustainable practice?
I think yeah, that's kind of my fear, especially with art awards now accepting AI, that there could be like even painters spend like it's time consuming to paint, and it takes a lot of skill to even get to the point to be learning, or the stuff I do, which generally I make one project every 2 years if I'm lucky. And then now I'm competing with people who can write a few lines and then enter and work into an art award. So then it's kind of diminishing. It's kind of like, I don't know, I feel like it's a little bit stealing my ability to survive or my livelihood as an artist. And that's my biggest fear with it, which is then I think art awards can have AI generated art, but it should be like a subcategory within the art award, just like there's already subcategories within art awards now, like digital art or painting or video art. But yeah, that's my biggest fear as well, that it will kind of, but I hope not. I hope kind of galleries and the public and people who consume art are still going to value that kind of human aspect of it, or the unique human side of it, and kind of crave these things. And if everything does become AI generated, then it's going to be the few human generated content that probably hopefully has value or can connect to people, or yeah, I hope so.
Time when we're making work, it's not something that's quick, and that is really interesting point. 2 years to make a work, and you know, as a society, we need to consider that when looking at artists and arts work and creative practice. I'm just going to end on this one. It's just come in, and I'm not sure if you want to answer it, but I find it interesting. If AI is considered as a tool, then why is there a need for attribution beyond this being an ethical or ideological decision? Media artists don't acknowledge the gear they use unless sponsored, etc.
That is a good question. I think 5%. So I think the Japanese author I mentioned, I think 5%, she's just being generous and nice, saying 5% was generated from the book. I don't think she had to attribute it, but I think 100% for me definitely would be. But that is a good question, because the band's not saying which pedals they're using to create their music, or an author's not saying which computer or word processor they're using to create their thing. I think because but for me, AI is different than every other technology. So it's similar to other technology, but it does raise ethical questions that no other technology has raised before. And that's probably my view with it, that's probably why we have to attribute it. Because it has fundamentally kind of changed the landscape more than what photography did, or the internet, or computers, or anything else did. And it's I know, like, artists still existed after photography, and books still existed after the internet and Kindle. But I do feel like AI, especially with people like Grimes now saying we don't need artists or authors or musicians anymore, is kind of the biggest threat to kind of all industries, but yeah, definitely to the creative industries. But it is a good question, and then I actually am struggling to answer at the same time.
I think we might wrap that up. Thank you, everyone, for your amazing questions. And like we said before, we will collate them, and we will do follow-up answers as well. And I just wanted to thank everyone for joining us today. That was a really interesting and a lot of heavy content in there. So thanks for sticking with it. And also to Kailum for getting up at 4:30 in the morning to come along to today's session and present. And our previous presenters, Catherine Giles from Arts Law and Siobhan Wright from Terry Jenke and Company, for being part of NAVA Talks AI. All the sessions will be recorded and available on our website in the coming weeks. In the coming week, you should get an email if you've registered that it's up. Big thanks to Jerry and Angela, the Auslan interpreters, for doing an amazing job. I hope we spoke not too fast. And also
for the content as well, the words.
Well done. Thanks, guys. And to Amy on the captions as well. We'd also like to acknowledge and thank our funding bodies. Without their support, NAVA would not be able to undertake the important work we do. Thank you to Create New South Wales, Arts Queensland and Creative Australia. If you'd like to get in touch with NAVA, you can reach us on nava@visualarts.net.au. And if you want some further information about our membership, jump onto our website. So that's the final session of NAVA Talks AI. Thank you so much for joining, and have a lovely afternoon. Thanks, Kailum. See you later.
Thank you. Bye-bye.